Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed a long time ago to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Shout out to the Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/hip hop. Now, if you would like to know what that's all about, well, visit the link in the description of this episode, whether you're listening in audio form, which is available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all that good stuff, but also right here on YouTube, where we are on the road to 500 subscribers. We stopped a couple times, tweaked our knee a little bit, oh, my ankle, hold up, let me take a break. I'm a little bit gassed, the cardio. We did all that, but we're still on the road. So if you like what you're seeing, you like what you're hearing, you watched a couple videos, you're not subscribed, why not subscribe today? Join the other 470 subscribers to this podcast because we got all kinds of content like last week. Me and the homie Tony of Into the Dome podcast collaborated on another edition of That Time in Hip Hop. If you don't know what that is, well, that is a show that I created a while ago. We did we did like 70 something episodes about moments in history, moments in hip hop history. So not only talking albums and artists, but events, films, moguls in the game, producers, all kinds of things, what ifs, all of that. And we recently did a show to salute the legendary record label Loud Records, who had a roster of Big Pun, Wu-Tang, Raekwon, Mobb Deep, M.O.P., Alcoholics, Exhibit, Crazy Bone, Twister. It was a moment in time. So if you would like to, do the knowledge, get some history, or take a walk down memory lane, check out that episode. That's what we did last week. Before we get started, unfortunately, I hate to have to do these, but another rapper has passed away, this time due to a drug overdose, it seems. Autopsy isn't available, but judging by what I saw regarding the 911 call, it sounds like an overdose. Like it's straight up an overdose. Rich Homie Quan, most may know him from the song Lifestyle featuring Young Thug, which we all didn't understand he was saying, but the song was a bop. It was. And probably my favorite, Type of Way. When I tell you, I play that song to this day, bars. It's just dope. It just fits the energy of when your haters are mad at you and you're like, I keep winning and I know you're going to feel some type of way because you see me winning, which means angry for those who don't know. Trust me, there are people in the comments watching this who think, man, everybody knows that. No, they don't. No, they don't. And then plus my podcast gets a lot of people who come here for information to learn things, right? It's a safe space. Like, yo, I don't really know what my type of way is. Shh, what does that mean? That's what I'm here for. So there you have it. But yeah, he passed away. I think he was like only 34 years old. Terrible thing to happen to anyone, celebrity or not. So I just want to say rest in peace to Rich Homie Quan. Praise to his family. And yeah, man, hip hop, man, we've been losing a lot of people because again, I didn't do a live show last week or a news show last week. And Fat Man Scoop passed away, collapsed on stage, which was terrible. I think he was like 54 or 52, something like that. So also rest in peace to Fat Man Scoop. If you don't know who he is a part of the fabric of hip hop. Went to high school with Diamond D, right? A DJ, well-known DJ, especially in the New York City area. Probably more famous, uh, I would dare to say internationally, if you've heard the songs for, him over break beats. You know what I'm saying? Bass drop, brum, 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 like crazy, like kind of what the MC used to be way back in the beginning of hip hop, where the DJ did their thing, but the MC hyped the crowd up. Like he was kind of like the master of what that version of the MC used to be back in the days, which is dope. Obviously had the dope record with Missy and Sierra. So again, rest in peace to Fat Man Scoop. Rest in peace to Rich Homie Quan. Just lost way too soon for the both of those brothers. So big shout out to hiphopdx.com, allhiphop.com, and myself. Let's get right into the business. So Pusha T recently did an interview and he said, yo, the new Clipse album, Pusha T and No Malice, is done. Produced by Pharrell. The name of the album is called Let God Sort 'Em Out. Let God sort 'em out. I ain't gonna worry about it. Let God sort 'em out. Okay? He didn't say it like that. I'm just saying it like that. But he's saying, yo, album's done. We just waiting on one feature. And it's the one feature both of them have probably wanted. I think they've expressed this, but have wanted on a Clipse album since forever. And it's Nas. Now, he didn't say who it was in the interview. He kind of looked at the camera and was like, we're just waiting on you, right? But it's come out that it's Nas. Now, Nas has been making the rounds. You know that Hit Boy run got Nas hot in the streets. He announced the album would premiere that's supposed to happen this year. I don't know if it's going to happen. Maybe. Who knows? It's a lot happening, but we still have time. He's on the new LL album, and he's going to be on this Clipse album, which is also coming out, which is Nas out here. Nas out here, and I got some thoughts on Nas as it relates to the LL album, but I cannot wait for this album. Like I may have said, like the Nas and Premier joint, I anticipated, but I'd rather let them cook. So even if they didn't come out until 2025, as long as they get it right, I don't care when it drops. There are albums I anticipated that I knew were coming out, but the Clipse album is the one I really want because I know the bar work is going to be top level. I just know it because there's no reason why you get back with your brother, who to me, and it's no offense to anybody on the religion side, anything. But once he became No Malice, I think he took a step down as an MC as far as technique and skill, because when they were the Clipse, Malice was my favorite out the group. I thought Malice had more of the personality, more of the bars. I think Pusha T evolved into the supreme lyricist he is over time. He was nice back with the Clipse, but I think as a soloist is where he really found his foot and kind of became that dude. So now that him and his brother getting back together, I think what Pusha T has become lyrically will rub off on No Malice and push him to become what he used to be before he was No Malice, when he was Malice. And I just want to say this about, we haven't heard the album, but I want to say this about that whole situation. I feel like the Clipse didn't have to end because of his change. Now, I get it. Maybe he needed to step completely away from hip hop, and that meant not making music. So taking a break was cool, But when he came back, and I think he had an album and all of that, it it just didn't contain the energy or the essence of who he was as an MC. It was like he was trying to find his way as No Malice, right? Like he didn't know how to rap about things if he couldn't rap about what he used to rap about, which was drugs and all that. But I think there is a lane, and I think it'll be displayed on this album where you can. You don't have to promote it, but there's a way to talk about it and not be preachy about it. Not to every 5 minutes. Yeah, the cocaine lift up, but I used to do that. Oh, the gun spit, but I used to do. We know you used to do that. There's a way to talk about it and still have the redemption as a part of it, because I think the redemption is understood by fans. But we shall see, because Pusha T stayed talking like cocaine flips, and I'm just like, is he gonna be more No Malice than Pusha T? Because I don't think I want that if it's anything like what we heard a while back. So we'll see. There's a lot of hype behind it. What I could hear from snippets of songs, it sounds like it might be like they might be back. I'll just say this: No Malice, go talk to Mace, okay? Because Mace knew how to still be Mace without being Murder Mace, but it felt like Murder Mace. But you know what I'm saying? Like it was like he was back, and it wasn't secular music really, but I don't know what it is now. I don't know. I'm confusing myself. But at this point, I think if you're going to make a Clipse album, it got to sound like a Clipse album. It can't sound like something else. It just can't, because people want a Clipse album, and you're selling a Clipse album. So we'll see. I subscribe to Math Hoffa's podcast via YouTube. It's called My Expert Opinion. One of the reasons why I prefer it over Gilly, Joe Budden, and even probably more recently, Drink Champs, is because I like Math's questions, and he doesn't step on his guests' answers and the way others do. And not saying all of them do. We know Nori does that notoriously. Uh, but that's what I like about watching his podcast, and I like the guests he brings on, right? Like, sure, it's sometimes it's the same guest that you saw over here, over there, or whatever. But sometimes you feel like you're getting a real barbershop conversation. There's a lot of like barbershop couch podcasts that portray themselves as a group of individuals just kicking it, and they just happen to have a guest and they answer them questions, but it's never really done in execution the way I think My Expert Opinion is done, right? For example, and we're not going to get too into this because we're going to talk about the guests, but what the difference is I feel like other podcasts are there where it feels like they're performing. They're not an extension of the audience, and they also not the audience getting a peek into what would have been a personal conversation within the barbershop. To me, that's important, because now I feel like I'm a fly on the wall, or that would have been my next question, or I didn't think about that. Let's see how the guest answers that question. A lot of times, some of these podcasts, the minute the hosts start to speak, it's a performance, and it takes away from the focus, which is the guest. You're going to be able to shine just off the mere fact of taking part in it and having an opinion. And I like the camera work. But besides that, lately there's been a lot of drama with the show and former guests and stuff like that, and reposting old episodes, which I thought was cool because I ain't watch every single episode. So I was able to catch up on some stuff. And then some guests that I really didn't care to really learn anything about. So I was picky with what I would watch. And then I saw they were talking to Little Shawn, and I'm like, wow, I don't think I've seen Little Shawn since the mid 90s. And I'm not joking. Now, it doesn't mean he wasn't around. It just means I haven't seen him. And when it made me think, I was like, oh, wait, he's going to talk about the quad studio shooting, because I know on Math Hoffa's podcast and Nori's podcast, for the most part, they get right to what we want to know. And I think it's a very important guest to have, because of all the different takes from Tupac about what happened, from Diddy, what happened, from Haitian Jack, from what's his name, locked up, the other Haitian dude, Jimmy Hinchman's, my bad. His take on it, C's take on it, other people who were in and around were there, weren't there, right? Like Funkmaster Flex saying Tupac shot himself. I don't think Flex was DJing at the in the lobby, but I always was curious, because there was one thing that was always said when Tupac or whoever talked about that shooting, right? And this is the first time he got shot, for those who don't know. This was in New York, before he had the rape case. And I always wondered, because everybody would say, including Tupac, I was going up to the studio to record a song with Little Shawn. You know what I'm saying? Jimmy Hinchman. I wanted to bring him on this song with Little Shawn. Everybody said that. So I wondered, like, well, Little Shawn had to be there. And nobody talks about where Little Shawn was, why, how, or more importantly, he does it. And I'm not following the internet to a T. I think he did Drink Champs. I didn't watch that. But this is me seeing it now. And he talked about it in a very cryptic way. So let me just get to the point. He basically talked about how, for one, he's working on a film that tells his story. Now, to me, I'm extremely interested in this. And I think some people, and these are the hip hop heads, and mostly, not all, and mostly you internet cats, think because if you go and listen to the songs or you remember Little Shawn songs, you feel like you don't believe anything he's saying. He's not a thug. You know what he made? Hickey's on your day. Who, what? You know what I'm saying? Don Perignon, what? First of all, Little Shawn, if you was in the club, Little Shawn had two joints that was crazy. Don Perignon and the Hickey's on your neck joint. Little Shawn was dope. What I did know that he also revealed is that he patterned himself after LL Cool J, because that's who he wanted to be like. So that's why he made the music he made. But more importantly, he also was notoriously a ghostwriter for rappers, one including Father MC. Now, when you go listen to them Little Shawn songs, you hear Father MC's flow. Like, oh, he did write those joints. Because he flowed just the same way Father MC's flows. So Father MC, man, if you ain't write nothing, I got problems with you, because I thought you was dope. I even got a tape back here. If Little Shawn wrote your whole joint, it's crazy. I don't know that. But the fact that he was a ghostwriter and all these stories of working with Uptown and early Bad Boy years and all that. So Little Shawn was in the mix. Little Shawn is literally an extension of the audience. He's the fly on the wall. And more importantly, he's a street dude who knows what's real. And what he implies is that there's some people who are lying or are trying to make this story of Tupac getting shot extremely fantastical when it was routine stuff. The suspicion of what was going to happen or something happening was there for most of the parties being involved. This is what I get from what the story that Little Shawn told on this one clip. And I think in a lot of ways, some people, I looked at the comments, some people's like, yo, I learned nothing. I'm like, oh, I learned a lot. I learned what I already knew, that some things sound funny, But Little Shawn is making sense because he's like, I never had a relationship with Tupac like that to even be doing a feature. And I had been around him before. And he implies that most people, I don't know if he's talking about Big and Puff or whatever, and Andre Harrell, who was supposed to be there, but that most people knew Tupac was coming there and knew there was something funny going on with how this was all set up, right? Now, to play devil's advocate, I mean, if Jimmy Hinchman and Tupac got some dealings and Tupac owed him some money and he said, okay, well, I need you to do a feature on my artist's song. Tupac is a huge star at the time. It's going to help Little Shawn even more. So that's, to me, that's not suspicious. But if you start to add up bits and pieces of what you heard, you knew that Jimmy Hinchman and Tupac kind of had a problem. And one story, I forget who told it, was that for Jimmy Hinchman, it became less about the money and more about the respect. And he wanted to teach Pac a lesson. So I'm going to watch the rest of this interview when it's available. But I like the way you're talking, Little Shawn. I like the fact that you're a guy who wasn't out here all the time talking to everybody on every podcast, saying everything you can say, taking every check, and you getting right to the business. And I'm interested because his behind the scenes is the type of look you don't usually get in the music industry, with that one person who's connected to so many different people, but they move differently. They don't talk a lot. So when they decide to talk, it's usually a lot there. And AZ was kind of like that, but AZ wasn't gonna say nothing. Whole time they could ask him like, "What do you think when 50 Cent dissed you?" He'd be like, "Come on, man, come on, man." You know what I'm saying? Why are you asking that, man? But and I was just like, "Look, AZ, if you came here to say nothing, dog, get your head shaped up, get the line up and get out the barbershop, okay? Because it's not why we watch it." So there you have it. I mean, did you see that interview or that clip? What do you think about it? I'm not really here for the entertaining. I'm just trying to get to the real facts, because sometimes some things become like Lil Shawn said something that I thought was pretty dope because it's true. It's hard to change the minds of the entertained. And that's so true, because there are people who are entertained by this whole story of Tupac and the East Coast, West Coast, quote unquote, beef that leaves out these other two goons that ain't really about East Coast, right? It's really about beef, period. And, people just so entertained by all of it. Death Row, Bad Boy, Quad Studio shooting, Biggie dying, Tupac dying, Keefy D, like, it's all become entertainment, and it's not really getting down to what really happened, which is things that happen all the time to people who are less known. And it's just real. So, and lastly, y'all already know where I stand with this. Okay. We ain't gotta belabor no points. We ain't gotta say it a million times. I did a whole episode on why I think LL Cool J is the GOAT. That hasn't changed for me. And it's really about, it's not just about bars, it's not just about record sales, it's not just about performance, it's about checking all of those boxes. It's not just about longevity or albums or classics. What it's about, all of it. And LL has literally done all of it. He is the blueprint of longevity as it relates to success, because there are rappers who have longevity. Nas just proved he got serious longevity, right? Too Short, E40, right? Their album counts beyond 10. But LL was successful in several decades of hip hop. And when he's coming from being an artist mid to late 80s and able to be relevant in decades and eras of hip hop where different artists, different labels, different parts of the country ran hip hop, and LL still had hits on the radio right next to them, unheard of. Unheard of. It's just it. Now you can make dope music for years, but can you be popular at the same time and successful? Well, LL Cool J is back after a 11-year hiatus from making music with a new album called The Force, entirely produced by Q-Tip of A Tribe Called Quest. Now, the quick backstory is originally when LL announced he was coming back with a new album, it was produced entirely by Dr. Dre. Now, I know you say to yourself, well, where's that? Well, according to him, and I think Dr. Dre, I don't really remember Dr. Dre talking about it. Um, what they had wasn't working. It wasn't it. Something was missing from that energy. And then he announced that he was working with Q-Tip, which piqued a lot of hip hop fans' interest. But somebody like me was still kind of like, well, how will it work? Right? And this was a while ago. This was a couple years ago when they teased this. Then we eventually got the song The Force. And then we started to get singles a little bit later, like almost a year later. But now here we are. The album is here. Real quick, let's just go over the song. I mean, the album is 14 tracks deep, 43 minutes in length. That's my kind of album, right? I'm not trying to stay here all day. Uh, Features on this album include a couple notable features on here. Include Snoop Dogg, Q-Tip, Eminem, Rick Ross, Fat Joe, Nas, Busta Rhymes, Sweetie, I think that's how you say her name, and more, right? A really packed album that I'm not going to hold you for those who just need the review up front. It's refreshing. That's what I'll say. Now, as someone who is a big LL fan, he's not my favorite, right? He might be my top 5 favorite, but my favorite is Biggie, okay? Uh, his last maybe 3 albums in the early 2000s were garbage. The best song that I can just at least remember was a song he had with Joe, and I don't even think that appeared on the album. And after decades of having hit after hit, dope album after dope album, dope songs and all that, he kind of went on like a 3-album run. And I think there was like a hit or two in those, maybe those first 2, but he went on a 3-album run where those albums weren't working. And I thought it was over. I thought, the energy had dried up for him because you hear him, he was relevant in so many different decades that now, I think around the time of these albums when the South really took over. And he wasn't necessarily going to go there and start sounding like that because that really would have finished him. But what he was making just didn't have a place in hip hop anymore. But now, this new album with Q-Tip is different. Now, I say it's refreshing because of Q-Tip's production. LL over Q-Tip's production feels familiar, but weird at the same time, right? Production wise, it's Tribe. I can hear Tribe on a lot of these tracks, especially when Q-Tip is doing a hook. It reminds me of A Tribe Called Quest's last album, like Let Me Borrow $5, y'all can take it from here, whatever it's called. Can't remember. Uh, but LL sounds like LL, and he sounds more like late 90s, maybe late 90s, kind of early 2000s GOAT album LL. LL sounds good. He sounds really good. He don't sound old. He don't sound different. You know how like you get gruff Ghostface, but you kind of miss the Shawn that had the wind, be like the high voice. Like you don't get that Ghost no more. You get this gruff version that just don't hit the same. LL sound exactly the same. And there's one song where his flow kind of switches up, and he almost sounds like 80s, you know, late 80s LL. And I think it's pretty dope because lyrically, he's good. Remember, go look up kids and those new to hip hop. And I appreciate you for being here. Subscribe to the podcast. But being able to make a record like Can't Live Without My Radio, go listen to that. That's the same guy. Way back then. On this record, sounding fresh. Now, as far as the features, Snoop does a hook, which is cool. I kind of prefer it. Q-Tip obviously is all over this album doing different hooks and stuff like that. The Eminem song, I it's cool. I think I prefer it lyrically than as an entire song because why every time somebody does a song with Eminem, usually, probably except for that EPMD joint or whatever it was that Nas did with him, the beat always has to have those Eminem, like evil carnival beats. Like those are Eminem beats when you want to hear Eminem rap some quirky stuff. I don't want to hear LL over that. Now, was it the worst? No, it just didn't fit the rest of the album. It should have been one of those bonuses at the end so you can just say, oh, this is a leftover. It should have been within the album. I don't think it fit the album at all. Buster definitely was dope on here. The joint with Rick Ross and Fat Joe, I feel like Rick Ross and Fat Joe kind of mess up the vibe of the album because LL is establishing a flow and a concept on the song, and Rick Ross and Fat Joe just do Rick Ross and Fat Joe. Like AI could have did it. Like it just they didn't really add anything to it. The one song where I didn't like the beat when I heard it because I was like, okay, LL and Nas on the track for the first time. Let's get it. Let's hear what this sounds like. And when I first heard the beat, I was like, why this one? This Q-Tip's on the production, right? Until I heard them rap. First LL, and I was like, yeah, he kind of floating on this joint. But then I heard Nas, and at first when Nas started out, I was like, oh boy, he about to be out of pocket. We back to this again? Nas killed his verse. So I stand corrected. Let me just say what is the name of the song is Praise Him, which is dope. The song with Busta is called Huey in the Chair. I really like that joint. The song with Eminem, Murder Graham, 2 or Do or whatever. Should have been it should have been a damn bonus record. For the most part, and let me just say this: the last record, The Vow 14, I really like. Like, it's probably the one record where I think LL is definitely displaying a certain level of skill that's comparable to the rappers you hear today. That record was impressive, and it has features on it. Some couple people I'd never heard of, to be honest. Like Mad Squabble, but everybody was dope, including LL set it off. So I really like that joint. I'm gonna put it on the playlist. Obviously the singles are dope. And I'll say this about the album. My one knock, because this album, for those who don't know, will not be in my top 5 of the year because I think they're probably albums. There are 5 albums right now that I think are better. But it will be in my best of the year because I think it's a very good album considering this man's legacy and how he performs today on this project. And the majority of it is dope. But my knock on this album is I don't like a lot of the hooks. A lot of the hooks. And I think it's Q-Tip's fault. I'm just guessing. Because some of them, Q-Tip says the hook, and it's kind of like offbeat. And I'm trying to vibe with it. But I think some of them just sound corny. Like, there's a lot of tracks on here where the beat is hot, LL's rhyming, it sounds dope, and then it gets to the hook and it's like, no, 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 it's not it. That's not it. It's kind of like how I used to feel about Locke's albums. They'll have a dope beat, the bars will be there in the verses. You get to the hook and you'll say, why? Just cross the finish line. That's how I feel with this album. That's why, to me, it's not in the top five. I feel like there's songs that I'm eventually going to skip, even though I may like the beat and like the verses, because it's just a bummer to hear these hooks kind of be like, ah. And it's not every song, because again, when I heard the singles, I was like, LL 3 for 3, 4 for 4, and it's only 14 songs on here, but it just happened so much that it knocks it down a peg for me. But at the end of the day, I think it's still one of the best of the year, and that's saying a lot from two veterans in the hip hop game today. And that's not necessarily taking all of my history with LL and all my history with Q-Tip and Tribe and giving them the good job trophy, because there are plenty of legends where I'd be like, yo, this ain't it. This is trash. So, job well done, LL and Q-Tip. What do you think about LL Cool J's brand new album, The Force, produced by Q-Tip? Were you excited for this album? Do you like it? What songs do you like? What are the best features on here? I think Nas cleared the path as far as rhyming. You know, Eminem's rhymes was dope, but the Dark Carnival beat, like, come on, man, chill. Leave your comments in the comment section below. I do read them. I do respond. And since 50+% of you watch this show but don't subscribe, why not subscribe now? If you like it, if you like the content, subscribe to the podcast. I'm trying to get to 500. We got 30 more to go. Can we get there by the end of the year? I think so. It's kind of bars on bars. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.